Hello, cats and kittens, felines and felidae, humans and variant humans, and every race, class, and subclass. Whoop. I just was started to go a little too far left there. Um, Welcome to another episode of Breaking the RPG Cat. So we are doing a new format, and we're going to be reading some stuff out loud from some recent tabletop RPG books, both of them in Dungeons and Dragons. But before I do that, I think it is necessary for me to talk about a particular elephant in the room. So this is probably the third time in a row that I've been able to get on after 30 minutes up to the hour that I promised that I'd be here. And I do apologize to all of you because, I know that there's a significant amount of people reading my schedule off of Twitter, looking at my stream notifications. And, well, the issue has been that I've been having a hard time booting Adobe Character Animator, which is the animation software that I've been using in order to build this. And so what it's been doing is that it's been crashing while attempting to load my webcam. And so the thing is, after that's happened so many times, I've come to realize that it's probably the webcam that is having compatibility issues. So I've taken it off, and I've swapped it with another one. And so I'm sincerely hoping that this is really going to solve the problem. And so it's been pretty consistently been an issue with Character Animator, and it's been a consistent issue with Character Animator booting the webcam. So I'm certainly hoping that, from this point forward, I'm not going to run into that trouble again, and I'll actually be able to do my stream on time. So, fingers crossed. I'm hoping I solve the problem. If this doesn't solve the problem, I might have to do something drastic, like reinstall Windows 10. And, well, clearly I'm a little nervous about that. But anyways, thank you everybody for tuning in. So once again, this stream is brought to you by GreatMedia.Games. We're partnered with the GreatMedia.Games in order to bring you inexpensive TCG single cards. Visit GreatMedia.Games and use the code 10finity at checkout for 10% off your online purchase. So they've been doing really good lately. They have managed to log in roughly about 700 unique purchasers on their website, and I'm really happy for them for that. Is that their business is going really well right now. So, anyway, thank you absolutely everybody for tuning in. Let's go ahead and let's dig deep into some tabletop lore, and let's read some of the material that has come in. Oh, Ferret Magic, thank you very much for following. Ferret Magic is also a VTuber. Let me go over to the main screen so that I can do this part. So before we start reading, I do want to give him a shout out. And so hopefully we'll get a clip of that as well. Ferret Magic says I thought I was already following. Oops, I misspelled that. Alright, here we are.
She's all wet.
Well, she's all wet. I don't know what else you want me to say about that. Ferret underwater. And so is in-game character, apparently. But thank you very much for tuning in, Ferret Magic. It is good to see you again, and thank you very much for your support of the stream. So, here I have a tome of unreasonable ire. This is the very first draft of a new version of Dungeons and Dragons, currently titled D&D 1, that they hope to be introducing in 2024. And so I have seen some other streamers review this, and so this is roughly what gave me the idea in order to do the stream that we're going to be doing tonight. So I want to go ahead and I want to look over this. I want to give my thoughts up. So this has come out to some mixed reviews, and so, there's a lot of arguments that have been valid, and there's some arguments that are a little bit more concerning. Like Uh, on Dungeons and Dragons forums, there seems to be this prevailing concern that individuals are that the old ways of character races is starting to fall by the wayside, and we're replacing it with a version of race creation that emphasizes background. And so a lot of people are up in arms about this because, in the earlier versions of Dungeons and Dragons, these kind of things, they just used to be cut and dry. If you pick a elf, for example, you know that the elf is going to come from this region, it's going to have this kind of background, it's going to have this kind of religion, and most telling, it's going to be the fact that some races and some classes are going to be reacted to in a way that is pretty standard for those races and classes. And so the modern versions of D&D, have been trying to work in order to come up with a solution to this. There was a significant amount of this in the later 5e manuals, especially in 5e Monsters of the Multiverse. Yeah, that was the new Mordenkainen book, which was an update to the previous two monster lexicons, of Volo's Guide, and also, I forget what the other one is. But at any rate, that's what the issue has been so far. So we're going to see, significantly as we go through this, we're going to see some changes in how races and how classes are represented, and we're going to make our commentary based on that. And so I also know that there is a little bit of they did take the time in order to pen a new type of race in this, so we should be looking into that as well. Okay, so Unearthed Arcana 2022 Character Origins by Jeremy Crawford with Christopher Perkins and Ray Winninger, one of the two. This document is the first in a series of Unearthed Arcana articles that present material designed for the Player's Handbook coming out in 2024. The material here uses the rules of the 2014 Player Handbook, except where noted. So, they're just they're putting out this material in hopes that people are going to begin to play test it on their own. And so they're effectively saying, you should try this and you should try this incompatibility with 5e. And so we'll see how that works as we go along. Inside, you'll find the following content: character races, race options being considered for the player's handbook, all with updated designs, character backgrounds, the fun role that character background is going to play in helping flesh out the character's origin, starting languages, number of languages the character knows when created, feats, every first level feat mentioned that appears in the feats section, which contains both new and revised feats. And this is something that also that I should probably bring up, is a difference between this version and 5e, is that feats were a pretty significant part of Dungeons and Dragons version 3.5. And so they kind of fell by the wayside as soon as we got to version 5, but they were very significant in 3.5 and 4th edition. And so this is an attempt in order to kind of bring feats back into the fold, make them a little bit more commonplace, and we'll be reading a little bit about that. And the rules glossary. I don't think I need to describe a rules glossary. I think people already basically understand what that is. Alright, so before delving into these new options, please read the playtest manual sidebar. Yeah, this is playtest material. This article is presented for playtesting and feedback. This D&D material is in draft form, usable in your D&D campaign but not refined by full game development and editing. It isn't officially part of the game. The best way for you to give us feedback on this material is in the survey we'll release on D&D Beyond. And so they're aiming for a date of September the 1st on that, which is this coming Thursday. So it's really good that I'm reading this right now. Alright, so let's see here. As far as power level, the character options you read here may be more or less powerful from options in the previous player's handbook. If a design survives playtesting, we adjust its power to the desirable level before official publication. This means an option could be more or less powerful in its final form. Alright. Determining your origin. And so this is like we're coming out swinging on this one, because now we're talking about character origin as opposed to a combination of character, race, and class, which has been in every form of Dungeons and Dragons up until this point. So, after choosing your character's class, it's time to consider your character's origin. So, in creation, that means this is how they intend us to. This is just the order that they want us to present it in. Is it going to be class, or is it also going to be origin? All right. Who are the character's ancestors? How the characters spend the years leading up to a life of adventure? And to help answer these questions, you choose 3 things for a character: a race, a background, and a language. And so, that's the order of operations here: is that class, race, background, and then language. A character's race represents ancestry and confers game traits to the character. A character's background is a collection of characteristics that represent the place and occupation that were the most formative for the character. The character origin overview lists the traits of your character gains from race and background. Okay, so character origin overview: what's a race, what's a trait, what's the type of the creature, what is the character's size, what is the character's speed, the character's lifespan, and the special traits. And so, once again, these are still areas of character creation that are still affected by the race, or rather the species of the character that you're going to be choosing. So Dungeons & Dragons kind of probably a major sticking point when it comes specifically for working with Dungeons & Dragons is that we have a tendency to continue to call a creature, be they orc, half-elf, or tabaxi, like yours personally, we tend to call these races, when clearly, they're just kind of different humanoid species. And so, that is, reasonably in keeping with the trademark of Dungeons and Dragons as it was originally created. But that's one thing that people are going to change, where they're gonna feel like, well, this is completely changed. This isn't gonna make too much of a difference. This is really just out of line, and this is not Dungeons and Dragons. But I think I'm making too big a deal out of this too soon. So. Okay, so as far as background traits, we have ability score bonus. A background grants a +2 bonus to one ability score and 1 bonus to a different one. And so this isn't too different from how things are written in 5e, because you choose your background will get you certain ability score bonuses. The difference between, being somebody who works as a blacksmith, or works as a pauper, or works as a hermit, all of these inevitably result in different different ability score bonuses. Skill proficiencies: you get 2 skill proficiencies from the background. That's the same as 5e. A character learns 1 language from a background. A feat: every background provides a first level feat, and so this is what's different. A special ability acquired in the character's past, and so this was more commonly what was more often found in 3.5 over 5th edition, and this is something that I have. So this was probably the key difference between when I made my transition from 3.5 to 5. There was a version 4 in the middle there, but I have literally only played like 2 games in Dungeons & Dragons version 4. Alright, so race and background together help bring your character's backstory into focus, and they distinguish the character from other members of the same class. Once again, this is putting emphasis on origin, the character's backstory, and how that shapes the character. Two characters might be both members of the fire class, but if one is a human guard and the other is a dwarf gladiator, the two bring different capabilities and flavor to the class. So, yeah, well, that's reasonable. I mean, so if you're going to be doing any kind of role playing, you're going to consider how a person's background is going to affect what their abilities are. I am getting an encoding overloaded message, and I can't possibly imagine what might be causing that. So yeah, I'm getting some major drop frames right now. I'm doing things at an absolute minimum. I can't imagine what might be slowing down my PC right now. But I think it might be over. So we'll just go ahead and we'll proceed. Choosing a race, and after choosing a race and a background, you choose a language that a character knows, in addition to common and whatever language you gain for the background you choose. Okay, that's normal. Character races. When you choose your character's race, you determine whether your character is a member of the human race or a fantastical race. Are you a human or are you a variant human? That's kind of the way that I tend to say it. Variant human is a different human with a different kind of stat block in 5e. I wonder if we're going to continue to do that. But regardless of not whether we're going to do that, that's really just how I'm going to continue to sign into all of my streams. The description of each race includes a section of game traits which your character gains if you select that race. Yeah, so race does determine what was in those earlier tables. So that's our confirmation of that. This document provides descriptions and rules for race options: human, ardling, dragonborn, dwarf, elf, gnome, halfling, orc, and tiefling. So of all of those exist in version 5. The one that they're going to be adding is ardling, and we're going to be talking about that one relatively soon. Okay, so children of different humanoid kinds. Thanks to the magical workings of the multiverse, humans of different kinds sometimes have children together. For example, folk who have a human parent or an orc or an elf parent are particularly common. And so it is relatively common in order to have characters that are either half elves or half orcs. And so half elves and half orcs are currently listed as different races in the 5e Player's Handbook. But what they're suggesting to us is that there are lots of different humanoid combinations, and the combination of any two humanoids is going to develop in a customizable way, as opposed to listing half-elves and, the current situation where we list half-elves and we list half-orcs as being members of their own race. If you'd like to play the child of such a wonderful pairing, choose two race options that are humanoid to represent your parents. Then determine which of those race options provide your game traits. So then that means you get a choice of whether or not, of one of the two race tables that you use. Size, speed, and special traits. You can mix and match visible characteristics, color, ear shape, and like. If your character has a halfling and a gnome parent, you might choose halfling for your game traits, and then decide if your character has the pointed ears that are characteristic of a gnome. So we're just talking about appearance. But it's really interesting that, they do allow you to pick and choose in terms of size and also in terms of, just anything that is in the race tables that I mentioned previously. This is really significant because, there are some DMs that will tell you that will always be monitoring you based on your weight, based on your strength stat, based on the traits that you are going to be displaying, and, just kind of how that affects gameplay. But, so the ability in order to choose between two race options is going to be harder on dungeon masters particularly. And so let's see. If your character was finally determine the average of two options lifespan traits to figure out how long your character will live. So you get to live as long as a human or an elf. You got to pick one of the two. A child of a halfling and a gnome has an average lifespan of. Oh, actually, no. I got that wrong. You're supposed to determine the lifespan based on an average of the two lifespans that are in the race table. I mean, so you have to use basic mathematics in order to do that. You would add the two numbers together, and then you would divide it by two, and whatever number came out, that would be the average. And so there are some races that have incredibly long lifespans, like they've already mentioned, halflings and gnomes, and there's also races that have incredibly short lifespans, like the turtle, which probably only lives about 58 years. So that's kind of the trade-off when it comes to that. Okay, so this is the updated human description. Found throughout the universe, humans are as varied as they are numerous. They are relatively short-lived, but they strive to achieve as much as they can in the years that they're given. They're skilled pioneers and artisans. They are builders of nations, roads, cities, and ships. They strive to secure their place in the world and in the annals of history by creating art, amassing wealth, making laws, and questing for immortality. Their ambition and resourcefulness are commended, respected, and heard. Humans are as diverse in appearance as the people of Earth, and they have many gods. Scholars dispute the origin of humanity, but one of the earliest known human gatherings is said to have occurred in the Sigil, the Torus-shaped city at the center of the multiverse and the place where the common tongue was born. From there, humans could have spread to every corner of the multiverse, bringing Sigil's cosmopolitan within. So, in terms of lore versus myth, a significant amount of this myth actually comes from the Bible in terms of the Tower of Babel. Is that if they describe a situation where people had created a singularity within themselves, and it is the wellspring from which all humanity has sprung forward from that point. And so most species, most creation myths that belong to different races and cultures and religions basically believe that this is true. And, even in scientific terms, we have a tendency to believe that humans originated from one particularly large part of the world. And so you could choose, some people tend to talk about Pangea, the supercontinent, or also some people have a tendency to believe that we originated in Africa and then moved outwards from that period. All right, so humans of many worlds. On any given world in the multiverse, the material culture of humans can change from one region to another. In the Forgotten Realms, clothing, architecture, cuisine, and music are widely different in the Western Heartlands than the frozen North and Icewind Dale. So, as humans migrate, they bring elements of their cultures with them, giving rise to diverse settlements that contain people with different physical characteristics and a medley of clothing styles, customs, and beliefs. So that's really not all of that different so this is a little bit more representative of reality. It's more of a reality to D&D 1 comparison than it would have been a reality between these books and previous books. Although I'm sure that, as far as individuals' headcanons are concerned, they've always created people who are member of the human race after specific regions that they had considered. So, in that respect, it is really similar to how people have been playing all along. So this is the new race. These are the Ardlings. Ardlings are supernatural beings who are either born on the upper planes or have one or more ancestors who originated there. Their bright souls shine with the light of immortal beings who call the upper planes home. An Ardling has a head resembling that of an animal, typically one with virtuous associations. Depending on the animal, the Ardling might also have soft fur, downing feathers, or supple bare skin. The Hardling celestial legacy determines the animal it resembles. So these are celestial beings, but they're also celestial beings that are modeled after animals. And so we've just kind of had a variety of different, single animal races throughout 5e. The race that I belong to, which is Tabaxi, and also races based on turtles, lizards, you know, lots of different animals in the menagerie. There are werepeople who are people who have lycanthropy and transform into other uh, animals. Inkikyu says, "Hi, Brady. Hope you're well." Oh, yeah, I've never been better. I've been in a really good mood, and, that is what enjoys me to bring this stream to you. Thank you very much for tuning in. Oh, Hunter Dylan 95, thank you very much for tuning in. So you guys had just come in the middle of a discussion of Dungeons and Dragons, the new prototype Dungeons and Dragons Player's Handbook for 2024. And we're describing a new race that's going to be a part of that, and they're called the Ardling. Ardlings are celestial humanoids with the ability to resemble an animal. And I was just describing, well, there's already a very large amount of very specific animal races in Dungeons and Dragons, but I think they're doing this in order to kind of homogenize those groups and see if they can create something of a race that is kind of a multi-animal race. So, let's see. The exalted, the fierce passions of Arborea, the heroic art of Isgard, and the wondrous nature of the Beastlands call to Ardlings who have exalted celestial legacy. Their celestial ancestors are heroic champions of the chaotic good planes. I hope you've been having a good Monday so far, and I hope you've had a nice weekend. My weekend was kind of up and down. Yeah, I'd seen some of your Twitter posts about that, and, my heart goes out to you because I remember, just having these long periods of times where, I wrestle with my own emotions and my own emotional scale, and, I hope that you're doing well, and I hope that, you're keeping in good spirits, and, also that, you're able to move on from this point and see things a lot more optimistically. And if all that fails, you can always just bury yourself in your hobbies like I'm doing now with Dungeons and Dragons. So let's see. Heavenly, so this is heavenly, this is part of the background trait. The blissful harmony of Arcadia, the unwavering justice of Mount Celestia, and the bucolic paradise of Bitopia touch the souls of Ardlings who have the heavenly celestial legacy. Their celestial ancestors are staunch defenders of the lawful good planes. The idyllic celestial legacy connects Ardlings not only to the Beastlands and the Bitopia, but also to the eternal compassion of Elysium. Their celestial ancestors are paragons of kindness who hail from the neutral good planes. Thanks, Brady. Random crying spells are no fun. Yeah, I've been there as well. I would say this made up just an enormous amount of my teens to early adulthoods. Just having issues like that. So Arling's traits are humanoid. They tend to be medium or small, which is chosen when you select a race. They have a running speed of 30 feet or 200 years on average. As an Arling, you have special traits, angelic flight. You, as a bonus action, you spout spectral wings for a moment and you fly up to a number of feet equal to your speed. So, wow. So they're suggesting that anybody who is a part of a multi-animal race also has the ability to fly. If you're in the air at the end of this movement, you fall as if nothing is holding you aloft. So it's kind of akin to gliding in that respect. You get to do it as a bonus action. And so that is something that really concerns me, because when they talk about flight, you're usually doing it at a speed that is slightly faster than running. And so I wonder how they're going to reconcile that, if they're going to suggest that this is a special kind of flight that doesn't do that, or if they actually are suggesting that these characters can move that quickly. Let me see. So celestial legacies. Exalted ones are cat, eagle, goat, and mule. At first level, they know how to do Thaumaturgy, which is a cantrip in the fire domain, Divine Favor, and Lesser Restoration. The heavenly ones are the elephant, the owl, the pig, and the stork. At first level, they know the light cantrip, third level cure runes, and at fifth level zone of truth. And these are what they get just as a result of being their own races. These are bonus spells that they get as a result of being a Ardling. I'm already forgetting the new name of the new race. The idyllic are transformed into bears, dogs, ravens, or toad. This is probably the race that you would tend to use if you were building a nature lover like a ranger or a druid. Their first level would be guidance, their third level would have healing word, and their fifth level would be animal messenger. So yeah, that would be the ideal one to play if you're building a nature-based class. In Celestial Legacy, you are the recipient of a Celestial Legacy that grants you magical abilities. Choose a legacy from the Celestial Legacies table. Exalted, associated with chaotic good planes. Heavenly, associated with lawful good planes. Or idealistic, located with neutral good planes. So they shouldn't have put the table before this, because I've already read the table, so I've already understand that portion of it. You gain the initial benefit of the chosen legacy, a cantrip that you can learn. You can also choose the animal you most closely resemble. Starting at third level again, or at fifth level, you have the ability to cast a higher level spell. You just get specific third and fifth level spells. Intelligence, wisdom, and charisma is your spellcasting ability, so they have the ability to choose all three. In hopes you're going to pair this with whichever class that you're going to be, so that you can really kind of double the spellcasting ability for between the spells that you learn and the spells that are innate to you as a result of your race. And you have a resistance to radiant damage. Okay, well, yeah, because these are supposed to be holy characters. Ardlings of many worlds, they bring a little bit of the upper planes with them wherever they go. On many worlds, the first Ardlings use the magic of their celestial legacies to inspire and heal others. By virtue of their celestial legacies, some Ardlings survive to make the world a better place. Others use their supernal gifts to be the best version of themselves they can be. Still, others are delighted to have a connection to the upper planes without the responsibility of always having to do the right thing. So, in the end, I do think that this is an interesting class. I do have just a little bit concern when it comes to movement and flight speed, because that's not completely defined here just yet. It's also pretty significant that, they seem to be celestial beings, but they also seem to have animal forms and connections to things like light dominance or nature, which would make them extremely good cleric or druid characters. So, well, this is really just the prize at the bottom of the upcoming version 6 bowl. So, every other race is a race that does have a connection to previous versions of the game. Dragonborn. The earliest Dragonborn hatched from the eggs of chromatic and metallic dragons. One story holds that these eggs were blessed by the dragon gods Bahamut and Tiamat, who wanted to populate the worlds of dragons with people created in their image. Another story holds that dragons created the first Dragonborn without the gods' blessings. Whatever their origin, Dragonborn have made homes for themselves on the worlds of the material plane. Dragonborn look like wingless bipedal dragons. Dragonborn of chromatic ancestry that have scales that are black, blue, green, red, or white. And Dragonborn of metallic ancestries have scales that are brass, bronze, copper, gold, or silver. When two Dragonborn whose scales are of different colors produce a child, their offspring's scales match those of one parent or another. And so, in terms of Dragonborn, the color of your scales also tends to determine what your breath weapon is. And so this is what the table is for that. The black ones tend to have acid breath, the blue ones lightning breath, brass is fire, bronze is lightning, and copper is acid. Okay, so There's also a difference between whether or not they have a tendency to spit a projectile breath weapon or also a 15-foot cone weapon. Um, let's see. As an action, you exhale destructive energy in a 15-foot cone. Each creature must make a dex saving throw. Um, so I think they're actually limiting that at this point. I think every Dragonborn is actually going to be using a breath weapon in a 15-foot cone from the future, which, kind of makes sense. I mean, if you want to lob a projectile weapon, it might be a lot more significant to use a spell instead of using a breath weapon for that. Um, so damage resistance, um, whichever whichever breath you have, you also have resistance to the element that is based on. So if you were acid dragon, you would have an immunity to acid. Um, Dragonborn of many worlds. Dragonborn have a mystical bond to the material plane and are spread across its many worlds. The earliest Dragonborn settlements were built near dragon lairs so the Dragonborn could pay tribute to their draconic progenitors. So this is really significant in the Dungeons and Dragons lore because Dungeons and Dragons has a tendency to elevate the dragon race to the extent that they are their own culture. They have their own gods. And there's also a significant amount of campaigns that are really just kind of based towards visiting and participating in dragon lineage. So let's see. Dwarves, resilient like the mountains, dwarves were raised up from the earth in the elder days by a deity of Forge, called by various names on different worlds, Moradin, Reorcs, and others. That god gave dwarves an affinity for stone and metal and for living underground. So yeah, that is entirely background based. Let's see. Squat and often bearded, the original dwarves carved cities and strongholds into mountainsides under the earth. Their oldest legends tell of conflicts with the monsters of mountaintops and the Underdark, whether those monsters were towering giants or subterranean horrors. Inspired by those tales, dwarves of any culture often sing of valorous deeds, especially of the little overcoming the mighty. Okay, so humanoid, 4 to 5 feet tall, speed is about 30 feet, and their lifespan is about 350 years. Okay, so as a dwarf, you have special traits. You have dark vision with a range of 60 feet, dwarven resilience, you have resistance to poison damage, dwarven toughness. Your hit point maximum increases by 1, and it increases by 1 again whenever you gain a level. So, as far as defense ability, it's really the dwarf race is the one that's going to be worth doing because they are saying that, racially, you will be able to increase your hit point maximum by 1 for every level. Okay, forge-wise, yeah. You have an uncanny affinity for working with stone or metal. You gain tool proficiencies and stone cutting. You gain tremor sense with a range of 60 feet for 10 minutes. You must be on a stone surface or touching such a surface to use the tremor sense. Alright. Doors of many worlds. Okay, and so that's really just kind of describes a lot of the different sub-races and subclasses that are involved there. Elves. Created by the god Corlon, the first elves could change their physical forms at will. The elves lost this ability when Corlon exiled them from Arvindor for playing with another elven deity named Lolth, who tried and failed to usurp Corellian's dominion. That's what created the difference between elves and Drow elves, which are Underdark elves. Let's see. No longer able to shapeshift at will, the elves retreated to the Feywild where their sorrow was deepened by that plane's influence. And so elves have the mystical ability to take on characteristics of environments for which they are bonded. Elves are blessed with long lives and long memories. And so, yeah, this is all pretty standard. Yeah, also dark vision, elven lineage. Yeah, and so the differences are Drow, High Elf or Wood Elf, which is, yeah, the same as 5e. Um, Starting at 3rd level and again at 5th level, you have the ability to cast a spell with this trait. Um, hmm. I think that might be different. You gain the 1st level benefit of whichever lineage that you choose. Okay, so then this must be the table for it. The range of your dark vision increases to 120 feet, and you know dancing light if you're drow. At 3rd level, you learn fairy fire, and at 5th level, you learn darkness. I'm not too sure if these innate race spells were something that were in 5e, but it does seem to be just kind of a repeating theme throughout this reading. So let's see. High Elves, you know, prestidigitation, detect magic and misty step. Wood Elf increases your speed to 35 feet, and you also know Druidcraft, Longstrider, and Pass Without Trace. So once again, you know, this is probably a good. So choosing your lineage is something that can very sharply determine what your class is going to be. Let's see. You'll rest is 4 hours if you spend those hours in a trance-like meditation. Um, so this goes into the different races again. Gnomes are magical folk created by gods of hard work, invention, trickery, and life underground. The earliest gnomes were seldom seen by other folk due to the gnome's secretive nature and a propensity for lairing in sylvan forests, hillside burrows, and sprawling warrens under mountains. What they lacked in size, they made up for in cleverness and cunning. They confounded predators with elaborate traps and low, narrow, labyrinthine tunnels. They also learned useful magic from gods like Glittergold, Bervin, Wild Wanderer, and Buravar Korkshadow. They're petite folk with big eyes, pointed ears, and wistful imaginations, harkening back to when their ancestors hid in tunnels and under thick forest canopies. Many gnomes like the feeling of a roof over their head, even if the roof is nothing more than a hat. So, dark vision, gnomish cunning, which gives you advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma, saving throws. You're also part of a lineage that grants you supernatural abilities. Forest gnomes, rock gnomes. Well, that's just a choice between the two, either forest gnomes or rock gnomes. Intelligence, wisdom, and charisma is your spellcasting ability. Forest gnomes, no minor illusion cantrips. You can also cast Speak with Animals. And rock gnomes, no mending and prestidigitation. In addition, you can spend 10 minutes casting prestidigitation to create a tiny clockwork device, such as a toy, a fire starter, or a music box. When you create the device, you determine its function by choosing one effect of prestidigitation. Okay, well, these are. I think this area kind of describes what the advantages are to being a rock gnome over a forest gnome. All right, so gnomes of many worlds. Yeah, forest gnomes, rock gnomes, and then we're going into halfling. Cherished and guided by the gods who value life, home, and hearth, halflings gravitate towards bucolic heavens where family and community help shape their lives. Effectively, this is. The race that you would commonly associate with hobbits in J.R.R. Tolkien's. As a halfling, you have special traits. Brave gives you advantage on saving throws. Halfling nimbleness allows you to move through the space of a creature of a size larger than yours, if you cannot, but you cannot stop in that hex. And luck allows you to re-roll a die on a d20. So, if you roll a 1, and you're a halfling, you have the opportunity to re-roll that die. But there's also just as much a likelihood that you get a low roll, and then you would have to take whatever the second roll was, even if it was a second natural 1. Let's see. Of many worlds, the halflings are walking, talking contradictions. Home tradition and pastoral pursuits collide with a God's given love of adventure and a knack of getting into and out of trouble. Okay, well. So yeah, that's all pretty standard. I'd like to see how the luck mechanic plays out because I wonder if you were to mix that with other class abilities that allow you to re-roll dice. Exactly how much you would be able to stack that. Um, Orcs trace their tradition to Grummish, the one-eyed god, an unstoppable warrior, and a powerful leader. Orcs are average, tall, and brown. They have gray skin ears that are small and slightly pointed, and prominent lower canines that resemble small tusks. Medium humanoid with a speed of 30 feet and a lifespan of 80 years. Um, Orcs have the special traits of adrenaline rush, allows you to take the dash action as a bonus action, dark vision with a range of 60 feet, and you count as one size larger when you're determining your character capacity, which is pretty significant because orcs just kind of have a tendency to be able to carry a lot more stuff. And let's see, relentless endurance. When you're reduced to 0 hit points but not killed, you can drop to 1 hit point instead. Once you use this trait, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. So you just kind of have an automatic save the first time that you're completely knocked out in battle. Okay. Alright, so tieflings. Tieflings were either born in the lower planes or have one or more fiendish ancestors who originated there. A tiefling is linked to blood by a devil, a demon, a yuga sloth, or some other fiend. This connection to the lower planes is the tiefling's fiendish legacy, which comes with the promise of power, yet has no effect on the tiefling's moral outlook. Okay, so let me see. So yeah, abyssal creatures, or so that you have a choice between these kinds of lineages. Um, so horns, fur, tusks, black blood, and peculiar odors are common physical features of abyssal tieflings. Probably ones that have a connection to the Underdark. At least that's what I'm assuming. Tieflings who have the chthonic fiendish legacy look cadaverous, possess the unearthly beauty of an incubus or a succubus, or have physical features in common with a night hag, a yuga sloth, or some other natural evil fiendish ancestor. Or the infernal ones, which are, the ones that are actually reddish, possess horns, breathe fire, have the odor of sulfur. Hello, Queen Vampiress. Thank you very much for tuning in. So, I know Hunter Dillon and Inky Q were here most recently. So, thank you very much for tuning in. So, let's see. Tieflings are humanoid. They can be medium or small. They can move 30 feet, and they can live 100 years on average. They have dark vision, fiendish legacy, so just about every race that I've been reading about so far has been one that has had dark vision. I think maybe that's just a coincidence. That's just how they decided to stack the deck when it comes to this prototype. And of course, humans are something that I've already read about, and it's natural that humans don't have dark vision. So let me see. So then once again, there's a table of fiendish legacies. Abyssals have resistance to poison damage. They also know poison spray, a ray of sickness, and hold person. Chthonics have resistance to necrotic damage. They also know chill touch, false life, and ray of enfeeblement. And infernals have resistance to fire, and they also know firebolt, hellish rebuke, and darkness. Alright. Let me see. Due to otherworldly presence, the thaumaturgy cantrip. Alright, so I think that's pretty good much for the, I think that's all of the, races that they've decided to highlight in this revamp. And, so I think the big takeaway here is the fact that they more or less have developed a versions of characters that now are capable of having having feats, also capable of knowing specific types of spells at multiple levels. And probably most significant is really just the addition of the new species. I've already forgotten what they're called. Um, and the Ardling race. The Ardling race is the new race, and that is specifically developed in order to create races that directly connect to celestial races. And that's interesting because we have already, we've had the Tiefling race for a long time, and Tiefling race always have connections to underworld races. And I wonder if that there's supposed to be a race that is uh, like that. Like they want to create diametrically opposed races here, but really just kind of because I'd already said that Dungeons and Dragons is trying to move away from creating races that are just kind of immediately going to have a tendency to make each other their natural enemies and go against each other. But here we do have a race that has a propensity for being light, and we have another race that has a propensity for being dark. This is why it's so important that we are emphasizing uh, background when it comes to character creation, because a character's background is going to tell you what a character's motivation is far more than a character's proposed a character's race of origin. Let me put it that way. Okay, so right here. This is where they start to go into character background. When you choose a background, you have three options. Build a background by using the rules in the Build Your Background section, which is kind of the way that it was done in 5e. That the 5e Player's Handbook had a whole section of different types of backgrounds that you could apply to your characters, and tables of different kinds of backgrounds, and what they had afforded for you. Everybody is just saying hello in chat, and they're being friendly with each other. I hope I kind of feel funny that that I'm talking so lengthily about Dungeons and Dragons, because everybody knows each other so well, and everybody is just being friendly. So in the spirit of that, let me come down to your level a little bit, and let me say hello, everybody. Thank you very much for tuning in. I appreciate all of you. Many of you are my very close friends. So let me see. So this is, I think this is what them this is. The writers of this are trying to reconcile the difference between creating fully original character backgrounds and then creating the backgrounds based on the tables that are already found in 5e. So, yeah, select a pre-made background from the sample background section. So there's going to be two different sections for choosing backgrounds in the proposed New Player's Handbook, and that's pretty interesting. Or select a pre-made background from the samples background, and then customize it with the rules in the Build Your Background section. So that's actually three. They are giving you three whole options in order to develop what your character's backstory is. So I was going up to read this table right here, but I really do believe that this is just a table for tieflings. So they have provided us with the Build a Background section. Using the rules, you can build a background from scratch or customize a pre-made background, focusing on details related to your backstory you have in mind for your character. So this is the biggest difference between this and 5e, because they are really giving you just a lot of very tool sets that specifically deal with creating a character's background. So ability scores, when you're determining ability scores, choose two of them and increase one by 2 and the other by 1. So yeah, that's background feature ability scores. Choose 2 skills your character gains proficiency in them. Choose one tool they'll gain tool proficiency with, and a language, the standard languages and rare languages table. So this is relatively basic. They're giving you specifically the same kind of tool sets that you would have if you were using a table, but they are really just allowing you to choose what those specific skills are. And so that's a lot more varied than what you would ordinarily have done in 5e. And then choose a first level feat. Once again, we are putting an emphasis on having feats, which is something that was not as present as 5e as it was in the previous 3.5 build. Here's a collection of sample backgrounds. Okay, an acolyte of 2 and 1 intelligence, skill proficiencies in insight and religion, a tool proficiency calligrapher's supplies, language is celestial, and feat is magic initiative. And so this would be something that would be given to you if you were building one based on a table. And so I think that's effectively what they're trying to do here. They're going to still provide the tables, but they're going to just kind of, it's going to be less of a rule in order to pick a particular background and more of a guideline. So yeah, and then so the just different kinds of artisans and what they're going to be able to bring you. And so the feats are outlined based on background. So as an artisan, you would get the feat of crafter. As acolyte, you would get the feat of magic initiate. Charlatans will give you a skilled feat. A criminal will give you a alert feat. And occultist will give you a magic initiate. So, as a criminal, you also, being, having thieves' cant as your particular language. Let's see. So, I think thieves' cant was something that was more learnable in other versions of the game, and I don't know if it is really just kind of handcuffed to the new feat. It's kind of hard to say. Let's see. Okay, and then, to just go through the rest of these: farmer, guards, gladiators, guides, hermits, nobles, laborers, or pilgrim. So there's like, for everything that I recognize from the 5e manual, I might also begin seeing things that are completely and totally different. I've never seen a farmer, I've never seen a laborer, and I've never seen a pilgrim. And so then we have sages, we have urchins, which I think, they're just kind of talking about people with a lot of streetwise abilities. Sailors and soldiers, and so some of these were provided in other books in 5e, but they were not provided in the player's handbook. This time I feel like they are trying to include all of these in the player's handbook. Alright, so it's just moving on to the next section. Yeah, starting languages, common standard languages, rare languages. That's pretty normal. Feat descriptions, and so this is where this is significant, because now we have a description for every one of the feats above. Here we have alert, which gives you a proficiency bonus to any time that you roll initiative, so you're more alert. You have a better opportunity in order to win those initiative rolls. Let's see, a crafter. Let me see. Tool proficiencies with 3 distinct artisans tools. You receive 20% discount on any non-magical item that you receive. That's interesting. I mean, you're adept at bargaining with merchants. That's a significant line there. And, faster crafting allows you to reduce crafting time by 20%. Okay, so healing gives you battle medic and healing rerolls. Luckies, musicians, magic initiatives, savage attackers, and tavern brawlers. accustomed to brawling. A person who is specially adept at starting fights in bars. Okay, so then let's see, toughness. And then right here, and finally we're at the bottom of this. There's only 3 pages left, and this is the rules glossary. This glossary includes game terms that are new or revised meaning in these playtest rules, as well as terms such as creature type that aren't defined in the player's handbook. So this is basically compiling everything that is different from 5e's. Arcane spells, so some of these races like tieflings and Ard people, Ard persons, Aardvarks. I've already forgotten their names. But yeah, all these creatures now have arcane spells, which is an innate form of spellcasting. And artisan's tools, a category tool which a character can gain tool proficiency is creature types. Every creature in D&D, including every player character, has a special tag which identifies the type of creatures they are. And so that would be aberration, beast, celestial, construct, dragon, elemental, fey, fiend, giant, humanoid, monstrosity, ooze, plant, and undead. So we're not really using, we're not basing people based on classes, but we're basing people on much broader definitions of types of classes. Some creatures, creature types that are more beast-like yours personally, or somebody who has dragon ancestry or elemental ancestry, or abyssal ancestry, like the tieflings are. So the D20 test, the term D20 test encompasses 3 main D20 rolls of the game: ability checks, attack rolls, and saving throws. The DM determines whether a D20 test is warranted in any given circumstances. D20 test must have a higher target, no less than 5 and no greater than 30. If you roll a 1, a D20 test automatically fails, regardless of any modifiers to the roll. And so this is different, but not really, because literally every game of Dungeons and Dragons had this as a house rule. It's never been a rule set in stone, but now they are really just kind of highlighting the fact that they want to do it this way. If you roll a natural 1, then your roll is always going to fail, and you're not allowed to apply your modifiers to it. If you roll a 20, then you automatically succeed, and then you don't need to apply your rolls. Special rules for critical hits. That's the same as it's always been. Divine spells. Gaming sets are a category tool which the character can get tool of proficiency. Okay, well. Grappled. When you're grappled, your speed is 0 and you have disadvantage on attack rolls against any target other than the grappler. Okay, incapacitated, inspiration, long rest. At the end of a long rest, I'm not seeing short rest, so I think they're really only focused on changing rules when it comes to long rest. If a long rest is interrupted by combat or by 1 hour walking, casting spells, or similar activity, the rest confers no benefit and must be restarted. If the rest was at least 1 hour long, then the creature gains the benefits of a short rest. And so this is a slight change in the rules. So short rests need to become long rests in order by restarting the span of the rest. You can't have a situation where you've developed a short rest and then you can say sleep 4 more hours and get the benefits of a long rest. And so maybe that's a little bit more realistically grounded, but I'm sure a lot of people are angry that the way that long rests have been altered is going to be different for them. But even if that is the case, then they can just go kind of use the previous form of long rest as a house rule or something like that. In musical instruments, primal spells, slowed. Um, Let me see. Um, okay, all musical instruments now cost 20 gold pieces each. Uh, Primal spells, draw forces of natures used by druids and rangers. I guess it's a new categorization of the kind of spells that are used by druids and rangers. Um, Slowed condition, tool proficiencies. A tremor sense, a creature with tremor sense can pinpoint the location of creatures and moving objects within a specific range, provided the creature with tremor sense and anything it's detecting are both in contact with the same surface. And then unarmed strike. This should be interesting because I wonder how they changed unarmed strike. Um, um, the damage of a bludgeoning strike gives you 1 plus your strength modifier. A grapple target will give you your grapple's escape DC equals 8 plus your strength modifier and your proficiency bonus. I need to read that again. I'm not entirely sure what that means. If you grapple, the grapple's escape is equal to 8 plus your strength plus your proficiency bonus. Okay, I get that now. Okay, this grapple is possible only if the target is no more than 1 size larger than you and if you have a hand free to grab the target. A shove allows you to either push the target 5 feet away or knock the target prone. And the shove is possible only if the target is no more than 1 size larger than you. There are now 3 main spell lists in the game: arcane spells, divine spells, and primal spells. In future Unearthed Arcana articles, we'll show you how classes use this list and how a class or a subclass might gain spells from another list. So they're waiting to make a very large population of spells for a future update in this. The lists here go through one level to support some of the races and feats in the documents. So they're really just kind of have a tendency to go over the changes in the spell lists when it comes to the ones that are listed in this list. And all they're doing is they're providing the list of potential spells. I assume that they would be the same as in 5e if you were to playtest this. Alrighty then. And so that makes up the entirety of the current D&D 1 campaign update. And so if you want to download this document too, you can go ahead and you can go to D&D Beyond. You can sign up for the D&D 1 playtest. You can pull down this article and then you can leave a review for it beginning on September 1st. So everybody's going to more or less have a say on this document. Everybody's going to put their 2 bits in, and then it's more likely this is going to be updated based on the consensus of a lot of the a lot of the feedback that Wizards is going to get based on this playtest period. But anyway, so yeah, we're already done with this article, so we're going to be taking a short break. I'll probably be back in about 5 minutes, and then we are going to go ahead and we are going to move on to the other Dungeons and Dragons lexicon that I had chosen for this evening's show. We're going to look at Boo's Astral Menagerie from the Spelljammer guidebooks. So stick around, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in so far. Thank you to Queen Vampiress, Hunter Dillon, Inkiku, Ferret Magic, and everybody who's tuned in so far. I'll be back after a very short break. Everybody, stick around. Thank you very much for tuning in. All right, we're back. Thank you everybody for staying tuned in. Once again, I'm Brady the RPG Cat, and we just completed reading Unearthed Arcana 2022, which is part of the new 1D&D campaign to begin to get player feedback on an upcoming version of the Player's Handbook that's going to be due in 2024. And so there are some advantages and there are some disadvantages, and I think a lot of them are pretty clear. And, certainly pundits other than me have already put their 2 cents in other public forum streams, YouTube videos, etc., etc. But personally, I feel like there is an earnest attempt in order to update things, but in a more general sense, I just am still waiting to see what the whole document is going to look like, and I'm more than likely going to make my decisions based on that. So I've played Dungeons and Dragons for a significant amount of time, and my range has always been from AD&D, which is version 2, all the way to version 5, which is what I'm playing currently. And so I played very little of version 4. I've also played I've played significantly more of version 3.5. So possibly my range of understanding is probably between versions 3.5 and versions 5. And so this is working in order to try to split the difference between these two. But, since this is an incomplete document, it's a little bit harder for me to fully determine whether or not this is going to be effective. Queen Vampiress says, welcome back. Yes, thank you very much, Queen Vampiress. So, I appreciate you. You're the best. Alright, so we're going to move on, after, reading about all these potential updates to version 5, the very next thing we're going to look at is we're going to look at something from version 5. And so we are looking at Boo's Astral Menagerie in Spelljammer. And so this is the version that is currently available through D&D Beyond. I also have the book version of this. So, I am spending my well-earned coin is supporting Dungeons and Dragons. Don't you worry about that. And so we're just going to look through this. This is part of Spelljammer Adventures in Space, which is the 5e version of Spelljammer, effectively the game that is known for taking Dungeons and Dragons mechanics and putting them in space. And so the emphasis on Spelljammer is on these ships that effectively look like sailing ships, but they are enchanted by magic in order to fly throughout the universe and discover other planets deep in space. It's a very interesting campaign to do, and I've already launched a campaign on my own among some of my friends that I play with at my local comic book store on Sundays. And so it's been interesting so far. There's a tendency for these to be just kind of a little bit less serious, and I think some of these books are kind of written in the spirit of that. But at any rate, the 5e edition of Spelljammer is made up of 3 books that were sold together in a $55 box set. Maybe I got it on sale. Maybe it's supposed to be slightly more expensive than that. But this just contains the 3 100-page books that serve as the Player's Handbook, the Monster Manual, and the first campaign, the first official campaign, all for Spelljammer. So we're going to look at what is effectively going to be the Monster Manual, which is called Boo's Astral Menagerie. Is going to have an explanation of some of the new races and also some of the monsters that are specific to the realm of space and Dungeons and Dragons. So we open with a quotation from Minsk, who says, "Take heart, fellow adventurers, for you have curried the favor of Boo. So, Boo is a hamster. More precisely, he's a miniature giant space hamster, a rather famous one. Boo's adventures with Mr. Rangers, as well as his ferocity, are legendary. But Boo would be the first to tell you that he is just one count of the countless amazing creatures that hail from the starry realm known as the Astral Plane. So, the thing that you have to know most about Boo is that Boo does not speak English. He only squeaks. But supposedly everything he says is being translated by the barbarian who keeps him as a pet, whose name is Minsk. Queen Vampiress says, I'm going to head out. Have a good night. Take care. Bye, everyone. So long, Queen Vampiress, and thank you once again for tuning in. I appreciate you a lot. You have been really you have been very dutiful in joining me anytime that I have a stream. And so I did post. So you'll be happy to hear that I did post an official schedule for this week. So if you do want to know what days that you'll actually be available to be in chat, you can now take a look at that. It's available on my Twitter, and it's also going to be available on the front page of my Twitch as soon as I sign out. All right. So, 100 Dylan says good night too. So, apparently giant space hamsters aren't as bright or legendary as their smaller cousin. Minsk has shared this information and a host of other pieces of lore from Boo freely and loudly during his travel. This book presents much of that lore, but don't expect commentary from the famous hamster. He's too busy saving the multiverse and, as Minsk might put it, kicking butt for goodness. So, if you want to look at any more creatures to populate your adventures in space, then look to the Monster Manual. Okay. So anything that exists in the Monster Manual is also just as likely to be encountered in Spelljammer. Practically any terrestrial creature can be turned into an astral dwelling creature, whether it requires air or not. A stone giant living on an asteroid might rely on an asteroid's air envelope for survival, or it might not need to be there. Or a mimic stowing away aboard a spelljamming ship might be an ordinary specimen or one who has adapted to life in wild space. You can turn any celestial creature into a wild space dwelling variant by giving it the following trait, if nothing else. Unusual nature, this creature doesn't require air. Using a stat block, this book is a companion to the Monster Manual, uses a similar presentation. If you're unfamiliar with the Monster Stat Book formula, read the introduction of the Monster Manual before proceeding further. This explains that stat block terminology and gives rules for various monster traits. I've already read that. If there's a need for me to translate something in terms of stat blocks, then I will be more than happy to go over it with you. Okay. And so this is everything that is in the in this book, and then that's ranked by challenge. So you have some creatures that are 0. They're 1/8 challenge, or 1/4 challenge, or 1/2 challenge, and then just 1 ranging all the way to 21. The most powerful being in this menagerie being the Ancient Solar Dragon, which is a level 21 threat. Unusual attacks and magic. Some creatures have weapons that deal unusual damage types and spellcasting that functions in an atypical way. For example, many astral elves deal extra radiant damage with their weapon attacks. This extra damage isn't a feature of the weapon. Such an exception is a special feature of a stat block and represents how the creature uses its weapon or casts its spell. The exception has no effect on how a weapon or spell functions for a different creature. I tend to have a different terminology when it comes to this. I tend to say that these kinds of things are alien. And it's really just kind of a situation that you're out in space and you're dealing with things that might be typical in space but are not really within your realm of understanding. So I just have a tendency to say that they're alien. I know that, that might have a lot of negative connotations. I mean, particularly when you're talking to people when it comes to Earth. Because, if you live on Earth and you don't deal with things in terms of your inability to understand them, that is racially wrong, But it certainly applies to things that, exist far out into outer space and are difficult for people who only have a background on Earth to fully understand. Okay, so Astral encounters. You can generate a random encounter on the astral plane by rolling wild space encounter tables or astral seas encounters tables. Let's see. Or you can choose an encounter. If the encounter is with a spell jamming ship, you can roll on a ship encounters table. Determine that the ship and its crew, or you can create a ship encounter of your own. Okay, initial attitude. To randomly determine the initial attitude of the creature's encounter, make an attitude roll. So this is just a table for whether or not monsters that you encounter are hostile, indifferent, or friendly. Okay. Wild space encounters, yeah, that's a D100 table. Astral sea encounters is another D100 table. Ship encounters, it's another 100 table. And so now we are finally at the bestiary. I think I am going to just reduce the text on this a little bit. Artuks are intelligent plant creatures that live to wage war. Beholders destroyed their original home world and scattered the survivors across the material plane. Those survivors form small nomadic cells. Artuk cells can be found throughout wild space, including aboard spell-jamming ships, whose former crews were either murdered or forcibly ejected by a band of Artuks. An Artuk's body is shaped like a 5-pointed star and is covered with a thick, flexible bark. The tips of its branch-like extremities and in suction cups that allow the creature to climb on vertical surfaces along ceilings. Each suction cup houses 3 retractable pseudopods that are used to manipulate small objects. The head of an Artuk surmounts a 6-foot-tall stalk that can be extruded from the center of the star. The head contains the Artuk's sensory organs, including a long tongue that the creature uses as a weapon. It continues to grow throughout its long life. Artuk elders can be as large as 12 feet in diameter. Its preferred method of attack is to shoot forth a gooey tongue and use it to drag enemies towards the center of its body so it can batter them with its powerful branches. It can also spit pellets of radiant energy. Artuks have no deities of their own, but certain groups have adopted various gods of war and vengeance, including Gromish, Hextor, and Sarganas. The Artuk language is made up of rustling sounds, snaps, pops, and hisses. It has no written form. And so this is effectively what it looks like. An Artuk priest is so... This is the standard. An elder, a large plant, typically lawful evil. So, once again, we're trying to avoid any kind of specific good, neutral, or evil alignment when it comes with our monsters. So that's why they tend to add typically to all of these. And so this is a practice that had started once again with the most recent release of 5e books, particularly Mordenkainen's Monsters of the Multiverse. And so this is probably just the direction they're going to take that from this point forward. Alright, so then we have the Elder, which is hit point 75. An Artuk Priest, who is hit points is 52. A Warrior, hit points 38. And so that's really just kind of the hierarchy of different kinds of Artuks that you can encounter. So you would start out with a base one, and then you would go from easy, medium, to hard. And so Astral Elves. Elves ventured into the astral plane to be closer to their gods. There they ceased to age and could exist indefinitely without sustenance. So previously we were talking about the 3 standard types of elves. This is an additional elf that is specific to spelljammer campaigns. So, Astral Elves were among the first creatures to dwell in the Silver Void. Astral Elves ply the astral sea in wild space in ships of their own design. Though the Silver Void is their home, Astral Elves often venture into wild space and place their ships and citadels in orbit around stars. I kind of like to think of them as Vulcans, but maybe that's just me. I'm just a quiet little Star Trek fan, Many Astral Elves are thousands of years old. Whether their disposition or longevity gives Astral Elves a perspective of time that few other kinds of creatures can appreciate. And so then we have separations based on class once again. Astral Elf Aristocrat has 103 hit points. A Commander, also 143. An Honor Guard who has 93. a Star Priest who has 90, an Elf Warrior who has 58. And so, yeah, so this is probably the lowest class. This is what you're going to be fighting in the first few levels. Auto Gnomes. Auto Gnomes are mechanical gnomes that resemble a rock gnome who created it, though it could never be mistaken for a gnome. Regardless of what its insides are made of, it has a metallic outer casing, painted with gnomish features. It walks with a stiff gait. An auto gnome obeys its creator's commands when it's functioning properly, but a flaw can cause an auto gnome to go rogue, forget its orders, and wander wild space, doing anything except what it's designed for. No two auto gnomes were necessarily made of the same materials. Magic is what gives them their intelligence. Most auto gnomes are programmed to obey the following three directives. Defend gnomes who are being attacked by non-gnomes, defend yourself if you are attacked, and prevent infants and youngsters from harm. So this is a variation of what has become known as Isaac Asimov's 3 laws of robotics. Protect yourself, protect your creator, and protect anyone from any potential harm. And so this is basically what is developed to be kind of a peaceable fail-safe for anybody who is a robot or just somebody who has a computer mind. And effectively, this was created by Asimov in order to write science fiction based on robots that are capable of existing among ordinary humans as an extension of a human race. So that's basically what that's based on. And this is a picture of an auto gnome. So interesting that, instead of going into space themselves, the rock gnomes created auto gnomes in their likeness and put them out into space. That just seems to be the way that they decided to do this. And so I'm going to have to make a consideration about that. If I ever do write something in the way of a Spelljammer campaign, I might want to explore that. Okay, Braxit. Braxit is a towering, warm-blooded carnivore with a thick, articulated shell covering its back, a squarish head topped with horny protrusions and thick arms, ending in large hands with opposable thumbs. The creature walks upright on 2 legs and speaks in a voice similar to a human. Braxits hunt alone or in pairs, prowling deserts, dry canyons, desolate wastelands, and lonely asteroids in search of prey. Braxits also spew acid, though they tend to only do so as a last result, since the acid dissolves and ruins the flesh that they crave. A Braxit projects an invisible psychic barrier around itself that enhances its natural armor and can amplify this magical energy to create shields of rippling force that deflect incoming attacks and absorb magic missile spells. And this is what they look like. It's kind of like a humanoid Triceratops, I think. And so they are 162 hit points. So they are really, really high on the strength. On the strength scale, they attack using great clubs and acid breath. Okay, so now the Brogues are broad-shouldered, 4-armed giants, 15 feet tall, with burnt orange skin. They have flat noses, pointed ears, and long hair that grows down the backs and sides of their otherwise bald heads. They wear simple garb and like to hurl heavy rocks. A Brog can wield a weapon with each of its 4 arms, but it prefers to pound enemies with its fists and rip smaller creatures apart with its bare hands. Brogs communicate with one another using grunts and basic hand signals. They have no spoken or written language. They prefer to be left alone and don't normally pose a threat to smaller creatures. Brogs are accustomed to eking out a meager existence in their natural habitat, and they rarely bond with other kinds of creatures. A Brog that benefits from a stranger's act of kindness is at first puzzled by the effort, and then wary. If this kindness is sufficient to earn the creature's trust, the Brog will try to repay the stranger, perhaps by carrying their gear or helping them navigate perilous terrain. So this is a Brog. Hit points are 92. So this is effectively the outer space giant. So, it's significant to me that they are four-armed. They make 4 fist attacks that are melee plus 8 to hit and do 12 2d6 plus 5 bludgeoning damage. So that is a lot. So they attack 4 times with the fist. They throw rocks, or they do a hideous rend, which uses all 4 of its hands to escape, to grapple, and then eventually pull apart its prey, which is horrifying. And that's why they call it a hideous rend. Chwingas. Chwingas are tiny elemental spirits that adapt easily to any habitable environment. Chwingas resemble 6-inch tall animated dolls with mask-like faces, spindly limbs, and wild hair. Chwingas normally avoid other creatures, but they find the trappings of civilization fascinating. They puzzle over creatures that wear armor, carry weapons, use tools, and cook food. When a Chingwa encounters one or more such creatures, its curiosity compels it to shadow them for a short time and observe them. If it takes a liking to a particular creature, a Chwinga uses cantrips to aid that creature, or bestows upon it a magical gift before departing. So this has got to be a similarity. This has got to be like a sprite or a fairy type character. This one seems to be riding an astral fish. And so these are, let me see, what are they? They're tiny elementals, so they're definitely of the elf persuasions. Magical gift is that if a Tringa targets a humanoid it can see within 5 feet of itself, the target gains a supernatural charm of the DM's choice. So yeah, they really are in the business of just handing out magical items. Cosmic horrors are colossal, malevolent entities that occasionally slip the bonds of the far realm and find themselves adrift on the astral plane. Drawn to the light of the distant stars, these creatures invade wild space systems and lay waste to worlds. After feeding on the minds and bodies of world inhabitants, a cosmic horror usually returns to the void, where it falls into a deep sleep. Cosmic horrors are among the most powerful creatures spawned by the far realm. No 2 of them have the same appearance, but they have certain qualities in common. Each one is 100 feet long or tall, and its physical form is a seemingly impossible conglomeration of eyes, mouths, wings, tentacle, and less recognizable organs of appendages. So they're listed as aberrations, probably something that is basically very difficult to understand. And they have a whopping 280 hit points, so these are, the right hand of the Demogorgon right here. So this is something that you should definitely save for the end or the higher levels of your campaign. Okay, a Dowar, which is, this is an outer space penguin. We actually have one of these in our current campaign. Dowars are short, pudgy, flightless avians that look and move like penguins. They're inverted merchants, always looking for an opportunity to turn a profit. Dowars conduct their dealings in secrecy, preferring to do businesses in dark alleys and out-of-the-way places, even when the items being bought and sold aren't illegal or dangerous. The average Dowar stands 3 feet tall and has bright plumage. Instead of wings, it has arms and tiny hands. Dowars prefer to communicate through a form of telepathy they call merging, in which 2 Dowars stay in mental contact while both are telepathically linked with a third creature. So that means that there needs to be 2 Dowars and a third creature that they hope to mind meld with and communicate with telepathically. Dowars have their own pantheon of deities made up of entirely of gods of commerce and wealth. By focusing on the worship of such deities, the Dowars hope to become the best merchants in the universe without alienating or offending any god in particular. So they have a bite attack and they also have a psionic attack. An aesthetic is a biological, symbiotic creation of a Rhaegar, an organic ship with only the barest hint of awareness. Rhaegar used their aesthetics as spell-jamming warships. So, effectively, this is a large living creature that has imitated the properties of a sailing ship and is probably something that you might do battle with if you're still in your spell-jamming ship. And so, let's see. This is, 217 hit points once again. Gosh, things in outer space sure are large and scary. Eye mongers. An eye monger looks more than like nothing more than a 12-foot diameter asteroid. When it senses vibrations in the space around it, the eye monger opens its eye and reveals its true menacing nature. It has no use for treasure, but its belly might hold a fair amount of incidental valuables that it can't digest, including coins, metal weapons, gemstones, and magic items. Although an ironmonger doesn't project an anti-magic cone from its eye as a beholder does, magic is suppressed inside of its gullet, which prevents a swallowed creature from using magic to escape. So you might want to confuse this with a beholder, but it is not a beholder. It's not as powerful. Although it does have an enormous amount of hit points, so like 139. Their bite is a hit of 12 2d6 plus 5 piercing damage, which is a lot. It would be like being bitten by an asteroid. Fear is a tentacled heart that feeds quietly on strong emotions to minimize the chance of harm to itself. It prefers to devour the nightmares of other creatures while they sleep. Consequently, fares shun bright light but aren't harmed by it. They're as much as home in the void of violet space as they are in dark alleys and dungeons. I already mispronounced it. They said fear. And so this is probably the smallest monster that we've met so far, other than some of the races of outer space elves. See, they have 88 hit points. Okay. Gages are hideous hunters that prey on other intelligent life forms. They crawl on 6 infantile legs and attack with their mandibles. A gage's head is a spongy globe about 2 feet in diameter with 3 feathery antennae protruding from the top. What is this classified as? This is classified as an aberration. 75 hit points, which is not too terribly bad. A gif. It's easy to spot gif in a room. They're burly folk, 7 foot tall, hippopotamus-headed people. Every aspect of the spacefaring gift society is organized along military lines. So, yeah, it's just a paramilitary anthropomorphic hippo race. So the shipmates are 75 hit points. The shock troopers are 93 hit points. Well, but they do appear to be very heavily armored, like from head to toe armored. And gives them an additional 20, a much higher armor class, I'm assuming, an 18th as opposed to a 12. So yeah, that's a very heavily armed hippo right there. A Gift Warlord, 178 hit points. This is the boss. But only an armor class of 17, which is half plate as opposed to full plate. The Githyanki are descended from an ancient people who are the progenitors of Githzerai. These tall, gaunt folk have potent psionic powers and dwell for the most part on the astral plane. Among the best known Githyanki are the followers of the Lich King Vlakith. They terrorize the astral plane, raiding into wild space to plunder the multiverse of its magic and riches. Let me see. The monster manual already contain a variety of Githyanki for your use. This section provides options specifically for the Spelljammer set. So they're called Buccaneer. I think they are all pirate subclassed. And so 58, 110, and 157. So, just like a race. They have hit points that increase based on rank. Hadazis are slender, highly adaptive humanoids with simian features and their own language. So these are the space apes. Their feet are fully as dexterous as their hands, even to the extent of having toes that serve as opposable thumbs. On Yazir, their homeworld, Hadozis lived high up in the trees to avoid large predators that walk on land. Today, wild space is where most of them feel at home. So the explorer, a relatively primate-like looking humanoid. So yeah, so then once again they go from 50 to huh. A shipmate is only has 9 hit points and 12 armor class. That's relatively slim for the people who you intend to have protect you. A Hadozi warrior is 16. So I think they're basically suggesting that these people are wild space people, that they have a propensity in order to attack in small groups. I don't necessarily know if there's a shark troop class quite yet, whether or not they've got similarities to creatures like goblins or kobolds, but they definitely are a lot lower on the potential enemy scale. Jammer Leech, barnacle-like creature that begins life as a space-dwelling spore that attaches to the hull of a spell-jamming ship, with a leech inside in larval form. The shell is affixed to a ship by a glue-like substance secreted by the leech. So these are just giant outer space leeches. 27 hit points, relatively on the small scale side. Kindori, among the largest creatures found in wild space. Gigantic aquatic space whales. A Kindori lacks a noticeable mouth. The leading edge of its body is dotted with small eyes that emit bright beams of light, which the creature uses to blind predators before making its escape. A Kindori is large enough to have its own gravity plane and air envelope, enabling smaller creatures to live and travel on its bodies. Lots of parasitic organisms grow on its surface, which in turn attract predators to clean them off. A Kindori might have scavers feeding on these parasites, which it doesn't mind. An extremely old or sick Kindori can be identified for the overgrowth of vines and vegetation on it. 11 armor, 202 hit points, and only has a tail attack. Lunar dragons, known as moon or phase dragons, are capricious xenophobic creatures that make their lairs inside desolate moons by burrowing through the rock. So yeah, we're finally getting to the dragon points. So this is up to 300 life points, 300 hit points, and this is what a lunar dragon looks like. It's very striking. It looks as though it could camouflage itself, and that it looks like it's moon rock. What kind of breath weapon does it have? It has cold breath. Well, that makes perfect sense because it is a lunar dragon. A lunar dragon's lair. The cave complex where a lunar dragon makes its lair contains ample space for food, as well as one or more hidden chambers where the dragon keeps its treasure. Depending on the composition and features of the moon, the lair might contain natural springs and heat vents, wild gardens, crystal formations, magical phenomenon, or an ecosystem of lesser life forms that have adapted to living with the dragon. So, the region containing an ancient or adult lunar dragon's lair is warped by the dragon's magic, which produces either black frost, a thin layer of black frost covering the ground, which kills all ordinary plants growing within 6 miles of the lair, or a haunting moan that gets louder or fainter the closer one gets to the lair. The moan is audible 6 miles from the lair, or 3 miles if the dragon is an adult. Moon devils, swirling funnels of dust and frost known as moon devils, crisscross the area within 1 mile. I think they're suggesting that's the same as dust devils, but with moon dust. If the dragon dies, the money stops, the moon devils dissipate, and the black frost disappears over the course of 1d10 days, allowing the plant life in the area to recover. And so this is the adult lunar dragon difference, and then the young lunar dragon. Then a wormling, and then megapede. Megapedes are enormous centipedes that can reach as much as 150 feet long, though most specimens top out at between 100 and 120 feet. Their dozens of legs are each 5 feet long and tipped with flexible claws, and they have fur-covered carapaces. A megapede's bite is poisonous. In addition, the creature has magical abilities that make it a superior predator. It can exude an invisible aura of life-draining energy, or it can fix its gaze on one creature and implant a psychic bomb in that creature's mind. After a megapede lays eggs, it attaches the eggs to its body using saliva and carries them on its back until the eggs hatch. Newly hatched megapedes grow to full size within weeks by consuming as much as they can, including one another if food is scarce. So that is at about 175. Mercane. Mercanes are merchants who trade primarily in magic items and advanced technology, including artifacts and spell jamming helms. 12-foot tall, lanky blue giants, so there's a different race of giants, in elegant robes and have elongated heads and long spindly fingers. Mercanes will conduct business with anyone fairly and reliably, provided the other party has never harmed or swindled another Mercane in the past. So 75 hit points. They're merchants. They're not really fighters. And they have multi attacks. They have psi imbued blades, and they also spellcast using psionics. See, a murder comet. Evil spellcasters create murder comets by combining the essence of earth elementals with that of fire elementals. A murder comet looks like a screaming stone head wreathed in flame. A murder comet's creator can bind their spirit to the comet. In this form, the comet's creator becomes ageless and immortal, free to race across wild space without need for air, sleep, or sustenance. So imagine if you're a lich and you're in this form. That is frightening. Let me see. Nathlagu. Known throughout the multiverse as brain collectors, Nathlagu consume the brains of humanoids and use them as receptacles to enhance their magical abilities. They are born in the nightmarish farm realm that they spread across the astral plane and find their way of the various worlds of the material plane, where brains are much more abundant. After Nathlagu kills a victim and uses his pincers to cut open the victim's head and remove their brain, and then swallows the brain whole. The collected brain is stored inside several pockets in Nathlagu's head. Once it's collected 12 brains in this fashion, it's overcome with an urge to return to the farm realm and begin devoting all its energy to finding a way home. In an encounter with a Nathlagu, roll a d12 to determine how many brains it's already collected. So that's what this creature is. So 95 hit points. Multi-attacks, bites, claws, and brain extraction. And mind blast and psionics. Because of course they do. So then let me see. Nyogi Hatchling Swarm. So basically these are the smaller insect type aliens who tend to populate in swarms, and it is up to the player characters in order to battle a swarm. A medium swarm of tiny aberrations, typically lawful evil, have combined 52 hit points and are armor class 11. Probably some of the simplest types of enemies that you can encounter in a Spelljammer game. Nyogi pirates are adult Nyogi that serve as crew members aboard Night Spiders. Nyogi society makes no distinction between individuals, aside from the ability that a given creature has to control others, and they don't comprehend the emotional aspects of existence that humans and similar beings experience. To a Nyogi, hatred is as foreign a sensation as love, and showing loyalty in the absence of authority is foolishness. I don't think we're really getting pictures of these creatures. They're starting to just zoom very quickly through the entirety of the monster manual at this point. So, Void Hunters, plasmoids are intelligent oozes that can alter their shape at will. Their amorphous bodies have a soft, malleable texture and can extrude up to 5 pseudopods, each one 5 feet long. Every plasmoid has massive nerves for a brain. They don't have internal organs, but they have pores through which they absorb oxygen. A plasmoid talks by forcing air through tubular cavities in its body, giving its voice a whistling quality. So this is what a plasmoid looks like. It's a slime, and it also just kind of has a very like humanoid shape, like it's a quadruped, and supposedly they talk through whistling. It's a very interesting creature there. An explorer who basically stands upright like a humanoid. Their armor class is 11, their hit points are 16. Um, the bosses are 11 with an 82. And then the warriors have 71 hit points and 16 natural armor. Okay, so we're getting to pretty close to the end of the stream at this point, and I'm starting to fade a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, you know, it's the beginning of the weekend. I'm already just kind of starting to go blah. And of course I'm going to have to start to go to work. I'm going to have to go to work starting tomorrow. So I think what I want to do is I just want to stick the bookmark in here. We're going to get back into talking about Boo's Astral Menagerie, and then we're going to start, more than likely, going to start reading another book the next time that we come back to this. I also have a book that is not in the Dungeons and Dragons pantheon that I want to read and review, and that's going to make for another version of this new format that we have. So thank you everybody for tuning in. There was a significant amount of people in chat today. I hope they were enjoying the kind of show that I was bringing. But I certainly it's great to have a moment in order to sit down and actually do some reading as far as a tabletop RPG, and it'll help give me a little bit of a sphere of inspiration when it comes to writing the RPG, and next time I do a stream called Writing the RPG. But anyways, thank you everybody once again for tuning in to Writing the RPG Cat. Thank you to Korean Vampiress, Hunter Dylan 95, Inkiku, and Ferret Magic for all tuning in. You guys made this evening's stream worthwhile, especially as a launcher. And once again, I want to give a special dedication to our sponsors at GreatMedia.Games. For inexpensive TCG single cards, visit GreatMedia.Games and use the code 10Finity at checkout for your next online purchase. So, thank you everybody for tuning in. This has been a lot of fun personally. I'd like to take a moment to do a raid. Let me see. Who would I like to visit in a raid right now? Let me see that. Well, they might be interesting. Let's see who else is right now. Maybe. So right now, what I would like to do is I would like to go over to P Noodle. Right now, they're in the middle of playing a game of Gunfire Reborn. So let's start out by giving them a shout out.
I have to just make our way out. I think we can actually go down into the east. There we go. A little bit of a shortcut. Where are we going? Yeah. Actually, do we explore down here?
They tend to be going up and down in the same place.
An extra chest.
Alright. So, well, that certainly was a clip. But anyway, we're going to go over and we're going to give them a raid, so. Alright, everybody. Thank you very much for tuning in. I am going to be back tomorrow evening beginning at 6 p.m. Well, I hope. And I'm going to be joining the Great Media Games and Rocky Mountain Pro Group in another game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. So thank you absolutely everybody for tuning in. You guys have been a fantastic audience. I'll be back tomorrow. Good night, everybody, and thank you very much for watching.